There is a $2 natural oil you can apply along your shoes, your garden perimeter, and the edges of your property that kills every tick it contacts and creates a barrier these blood-feeding parasites cannot cross. Without a single drop of synthetic pesticide, without exposing your children or pets to neurotoxins, and without the $300 quarterly contracts the pest control industry sells for tick treatment. The number of tick-borne illnesses reported in the United States has more than doubled over the last 2 decades, and the threat has expanded beyond Lyme disease to include alpha-gal syndrome, a condition triggered by tick saliva that causes a sudden, lifelong allergy to red meat, dairy, and gelatin in people who could eat those foods without issue their entire lives until a single tick bite changed their biology forever. Anaplasmosis, babesiosis, ehrlichiosis, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and Powassan virus have all increased dramatically as tick populations expand into new geographic regions. The chemical pest control industry charges $300 to $600 per quarterly tick treatment, sprays synthetic pyrethroids across suburban yards that the homeowners' children then play on, and contributes to the pollinator collapse that is destroying agricultural systems globally. A $2 natural oil that kills ticks more effectively than synthetic chemistry, creates a permanent property barrier, and poses no risk to pets, pollinators, or children, is exactly the kind of solution an industry built on chemical dependency has every reason to keep quiet about. They did not stop telling you because it failed. They stopped because a natural oil that ends the tick problem permanently is the worst possible product for a category that bills by the visit. The economics of tick control are built on growing fear and recurring chemical service. The pest control industry in the United States generates over $4 billion in annual revenue, and tick treatment has become one of its fastest growing service categories as tick-borne disease has expanded across the country. The average quarterly tick treatment contract runs $300 to $600 per year, with premium services charging significantly more for properties bordering wooded areas where tick pressure is highest. Beyond professional services, the consumer tick repellent market generates hundreds of millions of dollars annually in DEET-based personal sprays, permethrin-treated clothing, and chemical yard treatments, every one of which provides temporary protection that wears off within hours or breaks down within weeks, ensuring the next purchase and the next service visit. Synthetic pyrethroids sprayed across suburban lawns kill not only ticks but also bees, butterflies, beneficial predatory insects, and the soil microorganisms that healthy lawns depend on. They accumulate in soil and water, contribute to the documented collapse of pollinator populations, and persist in the environment in ways that the industry minimizes in its marketing, but acknowledges in its environmental impact disclosures. A natural plant-derived alternative that targets ticks specifically, without affecting pollinators or beneficial insects, is not merely a cheaper option. It is a fundamentally better one. And it has been sitting in plain sight for as long as humans have noticed which trees the ticks avoid. The suppression of this knowledge required no conspiracy, only an industry with no incentive to recommend the natural solution that costs it the most money. You cannot patent cedarwood oil. You cannot build a recurring revenue stream around a small bottle of essential oil that a homeowner buys once and uses for years. You cannot sell a $500 quarterly tick treatment to a customer who knows that a $2 spray of natural cedar oil along property boundaries and shoe lines kills every tick that contacts it. The chemistry of cedar oil's effect on tick biology has been studied since the early 20th century, deployed in military settings during multiple conflicts, and quietly used by traditional practitioners across continents. And none of that knowledge has translated into mainstream consumer awareness because the pest control industry has every reason to keep the conversation about ticks focused on chemical services rather than on a $2 bottle of natural oil that any homeowner can apply themselves. Let me take you back to the temple builders of ancient Mesopotamia, where the relationship between cedar wood and the prevention of infestation was understood with extraordinary practical sophistication thousands of years ago. The cedars of Lebanon, Cedrus libani, were among the most valued and most ritually significant trees in the ancient Near East, harvested at vast scale to construct the temples, palaces, and royal furniture of Sumerian, Babylonian, and ancient Egyptian civilization. The cedar was prized not only for its beauty and structural strength, but for a quality that ancient builders observed with the precision of generations of working with the material. Structures built of cedar wood and contents stored in cedar chests were remarkably resistant to the insects and parasites that destroyed other materials. The Sumerians built temple complexes with cedar beams. The Egyptians stored their most precious materials, including the embalmed remains of pharaohs, in cedar cases. The biblical Temple of Solomon was famously constructed of cedar of Lebanon. Across cultures and centuries, cedar wood was the building and storage material of choice precisely because it repelled the insects and arthropods, including, as later science would confirm, the ticks and mites that infested everything else. The ancients did not understand the chemistry of cedral and thujone, the primary insecticidal compounds in cedar wood. They understood that cedar protected what other materials could not. Move forward to the great American outdoor traditions of the 19th and early 20th centuries, when cedar oil was widely recognized as a natural insect and tick repellent across the rural and military populations of the United States. Cedar chests were standard furniture in American homes for storing woolens, linens, and seasonal clothing precisely because the cedar wood released volatile oils that repelled clothing moths and other insect pests. Outdoor workers, farmers, loggers, surveyors, and military personnel deployed in tick-heavy regions used cedar oil preparations on their boots, pant legs, and equipment as a known and trusted tick repellent. The United States military, conducting operations in tick-infested terrain across multiple deployments in the 20th century, documented the use of cedar oil and cedar-based preparations as field tick repellents in military, medical, and entomological literature. These uses were not folk practice. They were documented, systematic applications of a natural compound whose effectiveness was understood by the people who actually faced tick exposure as part of their daily work and survival. And throughout the second half of the 20th century, as scientific research methods became more rigorous, researchers in entomology and natural products chemistry began systematically documenting the specific compounds in cedar oil responsible for its insecticidal effects. Cedral, thujone, and other terpene compounds were identified as the active ingredients, and their mechanism of action on insect and arthropod biology was characterized in detail. The research confirmed what generations of outdoor workers had known empirically, that cedar oil killed ticks on contact and repelled them at a distance, and that the chemistry was so specific to invertebrate biology that it posed no significant risk to mammals, birds, or pollinators. None of that scientific consensus translated into mainstream tick control marketing in the United States, because the pest control industry had built its commercial infrastructure around synthetic chemistry that could be sold at premium prices and applied only by licensed professionals, while the natural oil that any homeowner could apply themselves remained quietly available to those who knew where to look. Before I give you the exact recipe and the chemistry of why cedar oil kills ticks and repels them so effectively, and the mechanism here is the part the tick control industry would prefer stayed in an entomology journal, I need to tell you about the complete forbidden camping vault. Inside, you will find the full natural tick barrier protocol with exact oil concentrations, application techniques for clothing and property perimeters, and the long-term landscaping methods that create permanent tick-free zones around your home. Also, the $1 natural liquid that erases every mold from any surface, the $1 kitchen recipe that triples every vegetable, the $2 natural powder that kills every ant and roach in 72 hours, the $1 powder that restores every pot and pan to factory condition, and 9 additional guides covering water purification, shelter, fire, and emergency food preservation. The link is in the description right now. But do not go anywhere, because the molecular biology of what cedar oil does to a tick's nervous system is the most elegant natural arthropod control mechanism in chemistry, and it costs less than a single quarterly service call. Here is exactly what happens to a tick when cedar oil makes contact and why this natural compound works through a mechanism no synthetic pesticide can match. Ticks, like many other arthropods, rely on a neurotransmitter system called the octopamine system, a chemical signaling network that controls heart rate, breathing, muscle function, and metabolic regulation in invertebrates. Octopamine has no direct equivalent in mammalian biology, which means that compounds targeting the octopamine system can be highly toxic to ticks and other arthropods while remaining essentially harmless to humans, pets, and other mammals. Cedar oil contains a complex mixture of terpene compounds, primarily cedral, thujopsine, and related sesquiterpenes, that interfere with octopamine signaling in tick biology. On direct contact, the compounds disrupt the tick's neuromuscular and respiratory function, leading to rapid mortality. The same compounds release volatile aromatic molecules that ticks detect through their chemoreceptors and instinctively avoid, creating a repellent barrier in any area where the oil has been applied. Beyond ticks, cedar oil disrupts the same octopamine signaling in fleas, ants, and many other arthropods, but it is specifically dramatic against ticks because the small, slow-moving parasites cannot escape rapidly from a treated zone. The compounds also dehydrate ticks by emulsifying the waxy cuticle that holds in their body water, adding a second mechanism of mortality. Field studies have documented that cedar oil applications produced rapid tick kill on contact and significantly reduced tick populations in treated zones for extended periods. The compound that ancient Sumerians used for their temples and that American outdoor workers carried in their gear for generations is, in modern peer-reviewed research, confirmed as one of the most effective natural tick control agents in existence. Here is exactly what to do, step by step. Step 1. Prepare the tick repellent spray. In a clean spray bottle, combine 1 tablespoon of pure cedarwood essential oil with 1 cup of distilled water and 1 tablespoon of witch hazel or unflavored vodka, which acts as an emulsifier that allows the oil and water to mix evenly. Shake the bottle vigorously before every use. The total cost of these ingredients is well under $3, with the cedar oil bottle producing dozens of batches. Step 2. Identify your tick exposure zones. Ticks do not live in mowed lawns. They live in leaf litter, shaded areas, fence lines, the edges of wooded areas, and the transition zones where forest meets lawn. These are where you should focus both repellent application and landscaping interventions. Step 3. Spray the cedar oil solution on your shoes, the cuffs of your pants, your socks, and any exposed skin areas you can comfortably treat every time you enter a tick exposure zone, gardening, hiking, walking through brushy areas, or working near property edges. Reapply every 2 hours during extended exposure. Step 4. Spray the perimeter of your property, paying particular attention to the wood-to-lawn transition zone, fence lines, and any area where leaf litter accumulates. Reapply this perimeter treatment every 2 to 3 weeks during tick season and immediately after heavy rain. Step 5. For a more permanent barrier, install a 3-foot wide strip of cedar wood chips around the entire perimeter of your yard, particularly along borders with wooded areas. The cedar chips release the same essential oils continuously, providing a passive tick barrier that lasts for months and that ticks will not cross. Step 6. For additional protection in extreme exposure situations such as deep brush hiking, take a piece of duct tape and wrap it around the top of each sock with the sticky side facing outward. Ticks that climb up the leg from the ground will encounter the sticky surface and adhere to it before they reach skin, allowing you to inspect and remove them at the end of the day before they can attach. This is a free, simple, mechanical barrier used by professional outdoor workers in tick-heavy regions. Total material cost for a full season of tick protection, under $10 in cedar oil, witch hazel, and cedar wood chips for permanent perimeter installation. A quarterly professional tick treatment contract, $300 to $600 per year indefinitely, with documented environmental costs to pollinators and soil organisms. Safety note: cedar oil is generally safe for humans and most pets when used topically at the dilutions described. But concentrated essential oils should never be ingested and should be kept out of reach of children and pets. Test the diluted spray on a small skin area first to check for any sensitivity, particularly for individuals with reactive skin. Cedar oil can be toxic to cats if applied directly to their fur or ingested, so avoid spraying cats or surfaces cats lick. Use only the property perimeter application and the personal clothing spray, not direct pet application. After any outdoor exposure in tick country, perform a thorough tick check on yourself, your children, and your pets within 2 hours of returning indoors, as the most effective tick control combines barrier prevention with prompt removal of any tick that does attach. Now you know what the $4 billion pest control industry and every chemical tick treatment service have spent decades ensuring you never connected to a $2 bottle of cedar oil. The compound that ancient Sumerians used to protect the temples and royal stores of an entire civilization, that American outdoor workers and military personnel relied on for generations, and that modern entomological research has confirmed disrupts tick biology at the molecular level without harming mammals or pollinators, will protect your family and your property from one of the fastest growing health threats in North America for less than the cost of a single quarterly service call from a company that sprays synthetic neurotoxins on the ground your children play on. Share this with every person you know who has paid for tick treatment, lost a pet to tick-borne illness, or worried about the rising threat of Lyme disease and alpha-gal syndrome. Subscribe and hit the bell, because the next vault we open exposes a method of capturing and storing enough rainwater to supply an entire household using a $15 system the water utility industry has quietly lobbied to restrict in over a dozen states.